This is my home. This is the island of Manhattan, shot with an ultra-fisheye lens. You can see the sun setting over the Hudson River and the East River below. In the center of the frame is the Empire State Building. I've had the chance to see many very, very beautiful things in my life as a photographer, and I've got a chance to do some pretty cool things. Here we are on the antenna of the Empire State Building, 1,475 feet over the city. They let me go up there without signing a release and without a harness. This is before I had children. The little square you see in the center there is the 110th floor of the Empire State Building, the observation deck. I can never forget the incredible view up there. You can literally see the curvature of the earth, every single borough and every bridge. As a photographer, I've always looked to try to find images that make the world look different, to find the ordinary and make it look extraordinary. These are ice skaters in Central Park during the winter months. But more recently, I did a project called Air. And this started 1 year ago yesterday with a magazine assignment for Men's Health magazine. The editor wrote that she wanted me to illustrate an article on the science and nature of coincidence. It was an article about psychology. And she wrote something pretty prescient. She says, the story largely touches on the human's need to make order and to make sense of the universe so they can better understand and justify who they are. So I started to think, how do you illustrate an article about psychology with aerial photography? The first thing I thought of were brain synapses. These actually are not brain synapses. These are rivers coming off of the glaciers in Iceland that I shot earlier this year. And then naturally, I thought of computer chips and motherboards. This too is not a motherboard. This is actually one of the images from Air of downtown Las Vegas. We'll get to that in a second. At first, it was a tough sell, but I asked the magazine, would you allow me to go up to about 8,000 feet over New York City at night and shoot the city? And they said, no, because they couldn't visualize what it would look like. No one had really done it before. So I did some research, and the only thing I could find were images taken from the International Space Station, 200 miles up, and I was not going to go up that high. But finally, after a bit of persistence, they let me go. And as I took off over New York City, I started to see things I hadn't seen in forever. The first thing I saw was an incredible variety of colors. This is due to a lot of the new LED lighting that we're seeing spreading across cities across the world. You're seeing intense hues of blue and yellow and magentas and greens. As I went higher, I saw images I'd never been able to take before. This is downtown Manhattan with the World Trade Center. I've been photographing for 25 years, but I've never seen the reflection of the Manhattan Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge on the East River. And then came this view at 7,500 feet, 2.2 kilometers over the city. Remember, I'm in a full body harness with a wide open door. It's very cold, and you feel very exposed to the elements and to the reality of, what happens if something goes wrong? It's going to be a really, really, really long fall. And you do think about it. You think about your children and what you're doing. But as you look out the window, you see things that you've literally never seen before. This is what Manhattan looks like looking north. Almost looks like arteries facing Central Park. Here's Times Square from the east side looking west. And again, notice the variety of colors that we're seeing. Had I shot this 4 or 5 years ago, you would not see this incredible variety in lighting. It would all be that orange sodium vapor lighting that we're more used to. The whole world is changing slowly to new, more energy-efficient lighting that also happens to have different colors of light that our human eye does not necessarily see. This is 6th Avenue in downtown. And finally, I was able to make this image here, which to me looks like Sim City, that video game that you might remember. Now, it's not just about the altitude. This is what Manhattan looks like from about 9,000 feet. It's scary up there again, and it's really cold, but it's actually literally breathtaking. But when you add light back in, there's this incredible source of energy that emanates from the city. You can actually see the energy beaming from Midtown Manhattan, from that incredible amount of light being generated by all of the LED panels. I went ahead and published this in the magazine, or they did, and nothing much happened. But then I put it online on a platform called Storehouse during my Christmas vacation. And the next thing you knew, 40 million people had seen these images, which is insane. Something clicked. Something happened. I didn't quite know why. I just knew that I had to keep shooting. The next city that we shot was kind of the polar opposite of New York. Everything that I hate in humanity put into one place. Las Vegas. Now, we've all seen this city from the hotel rooms or the cool party places 40 or 50 stories up. But as you take some distance from it, you can start to make out these little cool patterns of X's and O's. And you have to ask yourself, did the architects conceive that, or did it happen by nature? And the further and further you go, the more it starts to look like a matte painting. Absolutely surreal. And then I made this image that I showed you earlier, where I really thought this looks just like a motherboard or a computer chip. It's pretty incredible that you can see that sort of matching of what humankind is creating on a large scale as well as on a very small scale. This to me looks like almost like a living organism of sorts in the ocean. And all it is different types of color temperature lights, some more blue and some more yellow mixed together. And then the edge of Las Vegas, which to me looks like the edge of a computer wafer. Absolutely surreal. Now the scariest thing got scarier because Las Vegas is 2,000 feet above sea level. So we have to fly up to 12,000 feet to get this image. And what you're seeing here is Las Vegas, which according to astronaut Donald R. Pettit, is the brightest spot on Earth. And it's in the middle of a pitch black desert. I can tell you that because as we flew up, we flew with the door closed. And we were really crunched into the helicopter. And by the time we got to 12,000 feet, both of my legs had fallen asleep. So I had to hold my breath, slide the helicopter door open, and literally pick up my legs and plop them down, and then try to make sure that that harness worked. And again, you think about the worst, but then you see something like this, and that's actually the moon on top, and it somehow makes it work. That camera has always been this incredible shield for me, to shield me from the reality or of the danger. Then to the city of angels. Of course, LA would not be complete without traffic. And you have to ask yourself, or at least I did, what is it about these images that are making people share it? They kept being shared all over the world via the internet. And I think that in some strange way, aerial photography, literally taking distance from your subject, is somehow a little bit more intimate than sometimes being just feet away from your subject. And it's very similar to actually just taking a few steps back yourself from your own life. You can much more easily identify patterns. I mean, look at the incredible variety of colors in downtown Los Angeles. And you can change direction. You can see things coming. You can see bends in the road ahead. Then came here, San Francisco, one of my favorite cities in the world. And this is just an absolutely beautiful city. And of course, there's Market Street in the center. And the streets to the right of it look like actual blood arteries to me, of red and white blood flow. In the same way, of course, they're coming from the brake lights and headlights of cars. But I'm always looking for patterns, for geometry, to try to make something just feel a little more cohesive from up there. It's not just about going up in a helicopter and randomly taking pictures. It's about trying to identify something that feels a bit more cohesive or to make purposeful, to kind of find order in chaos, if you will. And here's the Transamerica building in the center. And you see beautiful things, just as simple as the bridge here, the Bay Bridge. And then something truly beautiful happened. The fog pulled in over San Francisco, and to me looked like an absolute thunderstorm photographed from the air. Then came London, which to me was by far the most terrifying city to photograph for two reasons. For one, the weather. You can't fly when it's raining or when it's cloudy. We got lucky. You can see the clouds pulled in at night and gave us an incredibly red sunset. What really terrified me was the utter lack of pattern in London. If you study the maps of London, there's no such thing as a grid. And I think that's exemplified right here. This is London. Only a taxi driver can find your way around in London. But again, I found beauty within the chaos. Here is Piccadilly Circus. And the colors were phenomenal. I had flown over London 7 years prior, and there were not these LED lights. And it was a very bland city at night. But it had completely taken new life since the Olympics, and of course, all the construction and modern architecture that has taken place there in the past decade. The flight over London was a dream, with one small bump when we flew over Buckingham Palace. The air traffic control tower guy came on and very politely said, are you going to be there much longer? And we quickly got the picture. It was time to go. We were waking up the Queen. So up and up we went, past some incredibly modern architecture, and into the clouds. Then came Barcelona, which to me was the one I was very excited about. Here's a very quick little video that shows us just prepping using Google Maps, Apple Maps. Everything is planned ahead of time, just like you would any big series or any film. But in the end of the day, once you've filed your flight map, you're pretty much getting permission to play and see what you see. Here is what Barcelona looks like from the air. And here it is at sunset. But here is the real reason I went to Barcelona. This, absolutely phenomenal. And that little whoa that I heard, I was hearing from the pilot who kept saying, wow, 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 wow. And that is really special to me, because these pilots I was flying with fly over these cities every day. These are veteran pilots, 20 or 30 years. And when they say, wow, you know they're seeing something they've never seen before and discovering something there's just no feeling like it in the world. And here it is again at night. This doesn't look human to me. It doesn't look human-made at all if you'd showed me this image. This is what we've created. And there's this beauty within the construct of our architecture. Of course, the Sagrada Familia, shot with a tilt-shift lens. And here we were at 11,000 feet. And again, I'll always remember that pilot going, wow, wow, wow. And most of them did. Then I went to Berlin with one image in mind. I had heard that even though, obviously, the wall fell more than almost 30 years ago, you could still see East and West Germany by the color of the lighting. So up I went. At first, it really wasn't working. It's a very flat city. And even though the Berlin Senate wrote a letter of recommendation to allow us to fly, which is very rare at night, it wasn't working. But I just held firm, and when the light went away, there you have it, East and West Berlin. It's actually flipped here. So the former communist bloc is on the left in yellow, and you can see the more modern bloc on the right of the frame, which is unbelievable to think that even though that wall fell 20-something years ago, I think it's 25, 26, 27, you can still see the remnants of it. The last city, finally, was Sydney. We actually photographed a total of 10 cities for a book called Air. It's coming out in 2 weeks. And this was the final city, which to me is a city that is completely married within its own environment, within surfing and the beauty of nature. It was also the toughest city to photograph. For example, we were given rules, like you can only fly from 7:09 p.m. to 7:36 p.m. below 2,000 feet over Sydney. So you have to gamble when you try to take off, because you never know when they're going to let you take off. You make the request, but there's 3 or 4 Airbus 380s waiting in front of you. You're not exactly a priority. When we finally got up, we saw some pretty beautiful things. And you can kind of see how as we, as human beings, interact with our environments, and in many ways, how our environments shape us and our cities. It gives you a very different perspective on life, both literally and figuratively. And it shows you when you're up there at 7 or 10 or 12,000 feet, there are no borders from up there. You don't see social or economic differences. You see that we're much more a cohesive whole than we all realize when we see one another on the ground and study the unimportant details. Most of all, this showed me an incredible amount of energy emanating from these cities around the world. It wasn't just electric energy. It wasn't just power grids. You can actually palpably feel the human energy coming off of them and the potential. And I learned, after flying all around the world, in exactly almost 1 year that I saw so many more similarities than I saw differences, which parallels what I learned for 25 years of photography at the New York Times, National Geographic, et cetera, et cetera. And that's one of the most important things to remember, I think, as we move along, and kind of realize that we're all in this together. We're all sharing this world. The reason I titled this series in this book, Air, is because it's something we all share in. It doesn't belong to any one of us, and we're all equally responsible for it. Lastly, I'll show you a little 1 or 2 minute video that gives you a bit of perspective of what it's like to be in the helicopter, and I'll give you one tip. Don't ever hire a friend to direct that video, because they will make the helicopter do things that are absolutely terrifying because it looks cool on screen. So you'll see us make some pretty cool stunt moves in the video. That's not how I fly. But anyways, he just said, be quiet. I know you can't breathe, but just be quiet, it looks cool. Here you go.
I've been flying since I can remember. And every time I would look out the window, I would see these incredible little stories outside, the little police cars, the stadiums, and I've always wanted to capture that somehow. This has to be one of the most amazing projects I've ever been part of because of the reaction to these images. I've had incredible feedback on these photographs from people who aren't even photographers. And that's probably the single most special thing that you can ask as an artist, is for everyone to engage with them and to share them. More than 40 million people have seen these images. That's unbelievable. When this assignment came up to photograph the city at night, I said, this is the time to go up really high and make some very unique images. And that is really organically how Air was born. It's something that I've wanted to shoot since I was 13 years old. I've waited 27 years for the technology to catch up. And now, just like you guys, I'm giddy as a kid every time I go up at night and photograph these cities from high altitude, because I'm seeing things that I've only dreamed of seeing, let alone capturing. And being able to share those with you is unbelievable. I have lots of inspirations out there in the world, but the reality is people inspire me, everyday people. There's something incredibly special about flying above a city at night. It's very peaceful up there. It's a very meditative process. It's extremely special, and the only word I can come up with is it's a privilege. When you're high above these cities, everything feels more within grasp. When you're up above it all, and you can see how close things are, you realize that things are much more within reach than we all realize. And that's the power of photography, is to show you this. You can see those hundreds of thousands or millions of lights below, and you can imagine the lives and the stories underneath you. And there's just something truly, ironically, incredibly intimate about being up above it all and being able to capture it in a still image.
Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of TED.